Watch this.
A tale of two letters. The words of 8 Canyon County officials against one of their own, asking her to resign. Why? That's what we wanted to know. Getting them is one thing. Keeping them is another. Both are not easy in this economy. Even the Boise Police Department is having a hard time with the Great Resignation. We ask what BPD is doing to better their numbers. It's the topic that won't go away at the Idaho State House. Another accusation of critical race theory in our education system. But in preschool kids? A case of she said, they said. Bit of a standoff setting up in the 2C. 8 elected leaders are asking for another one to resign. Yesterday, those 8 sent a signed letter to Canyon County District 1 Commissioner Leslie Van Beek, laying out all the reasons why she should step down for the good of the county. Today, Commissioner Van Beek responded with a letter of her own. And spoiler alert, she isn't stepping down, but rather she would like to step up and defend herself against any accusations publicly. Joe Paris explains the tale of the 2 letters and addresses the hanging question, what is this really about?
In a letter dated January 31st, 2022, 8 Canyon County officials signed off on a message asking Canyon County Commissioner Leslie Van Beek to resign from her position on the board. The letter outlines that the group of elected officials believe that Van Beek, quote, misused your access to confidential, non-public information to pursue personal agendas against some of us and our employees, and that you have repeatedly violated our trust, end quote. The letter continues saying, we believe that the county is on the verge of sustaining irreparable harm to its operations and reputation based on Van Beek's actions. So what is this about? Well, the letter does detail concerns about a few items, including Van Beek allegedly acting to, quote, purposely increase the liability exposure of other officials at taxpayer expense. The letter also questions Van Beek's conduct, saying she, quote, attempted to punish county employees for truthfully reporting unprofessional or unethical conduct. Those same elected officials are also raising concerns about, quote, systematic defamation of several elected officials, including instances where officials say they heard Van Beek accuse other elected officials of criminal or unethical conduct, with what they say is no basis in fact whatsoever. The letter also claims that Van Beek is, quote, unable or unwilling to work with officials in a sustained focus on issues of importance. They add that they are no longer willing to accept the conduct from Van Beek as a simple lack of experience, training, or access to information and assistance. Rather, they say, quote, we can only conclude that the seemingly unending stream of unfounded accusations, disrespect, mistreatment, misstatements, violation of confidence, and other acts represents your deliberate intention. The letter ends by saying the group has no confidence in Van Beek and is calling for her resignation. Commissioner Van Beek responded to the letter with one of her own on Wednesday. She writes, quote, when I have historically challenged many of your actions or intentions over the last several months, it has been consistent with my conscience, the applicable laws, and in the best interest of our mutual constituents. Understanding that you may be sensitive or defensive about the possible improprieties or conduct which I have questioned, I welcome the opportunity to have you provide your specifics to the media and the voters so that I may rebut and address each of the supposed issues publicly and independently. Van Beek doubles down on her conduct, saying, quote, be assured I have conducted myself in a manner consistent with my oath of office, my conscience, and with my constituents' rights and needs in mind. She adds that when there has been disagreements, quote, I have not called for you to resign. Rather, I have invited you to participate in robust discussion, seeking not who is right, but rather what is best for our citizens and county. Van Beek ends her thoughts, clearly signaling she doesn't intend to resign, saying, quote, when taxpayers' interests are involved, I am simply not going to go along to get along. However, none of us need to resign or malign. Instead, I look forward to debating whatever issues you choose to frame in a public forum.
Okay, Joe, so this is an elected position. All those 8 that signed the letter can't really force somebody out, right?
Right, and those 8 elected officials in Canyon County can write this letter, but as a group, they can't say vote and say, okay, we're going to get rid of a commissioner. The only way that an elected official could really be removed from office is being recalled, and the county office holder actually could be subject to recall if a petition is circulated in the county and at least 20% of the registered voters in that county vote to have a recall election. From there, they could have one. But Brian, at the end of the day, to be clear, specifically, we're not exactly sure what this is about. I've reached out to Commissioner Van Beek as well as the other elected officials to find out some more details. No response just yet, but hypothetically, if there was a recall election, we know that the constituents in Canyon County would want to know a lot more about the situation.
All right, needless to say, that next Board of County Commissioner meeting should be interesting. All right, thank you very much, Joe. The pandemic has certainly brought its challenges, both from the community health standpoint and an employment one. Finding workers or keeping them has been tough. It's impacted everything, whether it's your own business or you're just trying to eat out. But what happens to agencies like emergency services? They can't just shut down. Katya Stepovic sat down with Boise Police Chief Ryan Lee this afternoon to talk about the challenges his department is facing during the Great Resignation.
Right now, the Boise Police Department is looking for 31 sworn officers and 6 other professionals to join their team. While they're still able to respond to every call, they say they're faced with the challenge of what's potentially ahead because of decreasing applications.
If you're a young person entering the workforce and you're doing the classic debate in your mind of police officer or firefighter may seem more attractive at this moment in history. But we're seeing a time of both sort of generational retirements occur. So we had a lot of people join police work 25, 30 years ago. They've had a full career. They've had a full service. They're looking forward to a much-deserved retirement, and they're leaving. And we're seeing the beginning of that wave, and that wave is going to last for a little longer than the next half a decade.
According to Boise Police Chief Ryan Lee, since 2017, applications have been trending downward, especially since the start of the George Floyd movement in 2020.
Some of it is just sort of a generational change. That was going on a little bit before. I don't think it goes past anybody that the national narrative on policing is probably impacting some folks. We're seeing some folks that they're hearing from their loved ones, and they're making that own personal decision, that reassessment. So some of it is national trends, national narratives. Some of it is very personal decisions. Yeah, I have had officers, not very many, mention that was some of the decision making that occurred for them.
How do you change that narrative, if at all?
Sometimes you really just have to start local, build that local trust, and let that really spread. I think, honestly, the way the Boise Police Department is approaching a lot of different particular aspects of policing are ways that other communities could look to as solutions to some of the challenges they're having.
Not that it will, but do you have any concerns about if this trend were to continue?
I think on a national scope level, we should be worried that we're portraying the police profession in an appropriate way and that we're not mischaracterizing it and that we're getting the right people into the profession.
During the first application period in 2021, the department kept it open for an extended period of time in an attempt to hire more entry-level officers. But in the second half, only saw 75 applicants.
Housing is a real challenge, whether it's somebody who lives here and is looking to start their family and buy their first home, or it's somebody that's moving to the community. That's one of our biggest challenges.
Chief Lee says the Boise police force is in a better position than many police departments across the country. In an attempt to get more applications submitted, he says the department will focus on creating wellness programs, ramping up trust, legitimacy, and community support.
We really have the ability to help people, to affect change, to make a difference in people's lives. If you have a desire to go forth and to be able to truly help a community, to be able to care about everything that you could possibly imagine, it is an opportunity to truly have a servant's heart and to help make your community a better place.
So public perception or cost of living? Well, in March, the department will be posting new entry officer positions on their website. To check those out, learn what those requirements would be to join, just check out this story at ktvb.com. Will the 208 look into Representative Moon's claims that she found CRT teachings in the curricula of Boise County schools? If she has evidence of that, she owes it to her constituents to make it public. If she doesn't, she's lying. Rod sent us that text this morning. Well, settle in, Rod, because here we go. Education committee hearings at the Idaho State House usually don't come with the caveat, this could be interesting. Lately, though, like over the last 2 sessions specifically, they have. There was one held Monday of this week on the House side that really wasn't supposed to get interesting, but it did. This one lasted about an hour and was supposed to be basically a listening session, not a public hearing with representatives from the State Board of Education. However, lawmakers could ask some questions if they wanted. Board President Kirk Helbig stood at the podium when he got this question from Representative Dorothy Moon.
So the Idaho Association of Educating Young Children brought forward a $6 million grant, and you say there is no critical race theory, or doesn't seem to be an issue in Idaho. If you were aware in any of the hearings on that program that was defeated by the legislature, it was laden with critical race theory curriculum for our kids from infancy to pre-K. Is this something that you all are going to push again, or will you do a more thorough investigation of any programs that you tried to bring into the state with these $6 million in federal grant funds?
Well, in the essence of time, Helbig's response to that question was that $6 million federal grant that was supposed to be funding early childhood education in Idaho for 3 years, which would actually made it an $18 million grant, by the way, but was denied by the legislature. Well, that money was supposed to be sprinkled across communities so they could develop curriculums themselves, ones that met the needs of the kids at the local level. There wasn't a specified curriculum attached to it at all, he said.
If there was a curricular aspect to it that included critical race theory concepts, that would be news to me, and I'd be concerned about it.
As he should. A law school level academic concept being taught to Idaho preschoolers? That would be weird. Representative Moon, a follow-up?
Yes, I mean, there obviously was. I worked with one of those cohorts down in Boise County, and I did see the curriculum that was being brought in, and it was very much CRT. So I'm just saying, in the future, it would be wonderful if you could screen some of the ties to this grant money and what is being expected of our educators to put forth before these little kids. Because if you were to go back and look at the hearing, you would probably see there was a lot of CRT materials that were being provided to these school districts. So it is there. That's all. I guess that was more of a statement.
Yeah, not really much of a question, but quite a statement it was. While that exchange was making the rounds on social media, it also made its way back to the 3 Boise County school districts. That would be Basin, Horseshoe Bend, and Garden Valley. And they were not too pleased at being singled out on the record by Representative Moon. Dennis Chestnut, the superintendent of Horseshoe Bend, told us he's aware of Representative Moon's comments, but his district was never on the receiving end of that pre-K grant money. Idaho did accept a similar grant back in 2020, but Horseshoe Bend's preschool has always been funded by local dollars, Chestnut said. What I can tell you unequivocally is that critical race theory is not a part of Horseshoe Bend School District curriculum, and anyone claiming otherwise is misinformed. Meanwhile, Brian Hunick with the Boise School District, he said, this is the superintendent, he said Representative Moon must be referring to us. They did get money from that grant back in 2020. However, he said the last time Representative Moon was in our district was in 2019 when she donated her STEP award to the elementary school. She has not viewed our preschool curriculum because our elementary principal has not had a request from her. Neither have our preschool teachers, he said. We have no CRT curriculum in our preschool program unless you identify ABCs and 1, 2, 3s as CRT. They tell us they're actually working on an expanded response to that testimony. Garden Valley School District hasn't yet responded to our request for comment. We also reached out to Representative Moon to ask her about her comments, obviously. And after all, as Rod said, doesn't she owe it to her constituents to make any evidence she might have of preschool kids being taught critical race theory, making that public? We're still waiting for a response. And while we're talking about responses, many of you may have noticed the response of Representative Julie Yamamoto in that clip from Monday's committee meeting. We certainly did, and we wanted to ask her about it.
So I do have a question. So
About 44 minutes into the House Education Committee meeting on Monday,
and you say there is no critical race theory, or doesn't seem to be an issue in Idaho.
Representative Dorothy Moon of Stanley
In any of the hearings on that program that was defeated,
put her cards on the table.
it was laden with critical race theory curriculum for our kids from infancy to pre-K.
Weighted words
Theory curriculum for our kids from
worthy of a sizable reaction.
I cannot play poker. It is not in my being to not react to the things I hear and see. Yes, I disagreed with what she was saying, and it is just at odds with what I had looked at to see kids succeed, which is happening here in the Treasure Valley. As a longtime educator, I wanted parents to know what we were doing because they need to be talking about it at home. Our job wasn't to inculcate our values, it was to support the family. But as for these other, the critical race theory, Marxist ideologies, I have to say, most teachers I know, and they're still in the field, that is not their purpose. They're trying to help make sure that little people are reading and reading well enough that then they can go on to read to learn.
Yes, I mean, there obviously was, I worked with one of those cohorts down in Boise County, and I did see the curriculum that was being brought in, and it was very much CRT.
You mentioned that you're not a very good, very good poker face, but your reaction was kind of like, here we go again.
Oh, right. Yeah, I'm just to the place where I guess I'm not willing to not support the people who I know are in those classrooms and the administrators and the boards that care just as deeply about their children in their community as we legislators care about the children of Idaho.
Clearly, Representative Moon, I mean, she's been in these things and heard, and teachers and students and parents say that this isn't happening in our schools, but yet she's still kind of doubling down, to stick with the poker terms. She's doubling down on it by bringing it back up again this year as if it was still a thing.
There was a lot of CRT materials that were being provided to these school districts, so it is there.
Well, here's the thing about Representative Moon. She absolutely believes what she's saying. There is no guile there. She believes that it is a real and present danger, and is something that needs to be rooted out. And she is convinced, as are some other of my colleagues, that this is rampant. I don't want to make light of what someone else feels like is a truly serious issue, but I also think that we need to take a collective breath and be willing to kind of reboot maybe, and this business of that we don't trust anything anybody says. I don't see the evidence, and I guess, well, we'll go back to our poker. Show me the money. I mean, I'm just not seeing it.
In that meeting and even this morning, I mean, you can sense and physically see your frustration with this subject.
Well, I think that anyone who has people who they've worked with for 32 years, and you know them, they are friends, they are people who I respect and I admire. So yes, that's my frustration, is that we can't be making our decisions based on what we fear might be. We need to make our decisions on what is happening, and with some trust, until somebody gives us a good reason to not.
Representative Yamamoto, as you heard, a former educator, says she believes any question or concern about our kids' education and curriculum shouldn't be solved by the state. It should be handled on a local level by parents and local elected school administrators. She, like a lot of other state leaders we've spoken with about this subject, seem to be ready to move on. But not before we get that video of Representative Yamamoto made into a GIF or something, or maybe a meme, the Idaho CRT mood right now. It has been a couple of weeks since we first introduced you to 8-year-old Dylan Helbig. And in those 2 weeks, he's become, well, a world-famous author, known for his debut book, The Adventures of Dylan Helbig's Christmas by Dylan himself. And in that time, his story has been shared not just around the state, not just around the country, but around the world. Outlets like the Washington Post, New York Times, Seattle Times, USA Today, Good Morning America, they've all done their own story on Dylan, even as far away as the BBC and the Sydney Herald, where Dylan's mom told us it was their third most read story one day. And this morning, he was on the Today Show, where he broke some pretty big news.
Are you working on another one?
Yeah.
Oh.
Give us a sneak peek. What's it about?
It's about a jacket-eating closet.
A thrilling adventure, just like his first. We knew he was working on something, we just didn't quite know what it was going to be. Now we do. However, there's still a very long line to get your hands on his debut novel. 88 holds at the Lake Hazel Library at the moment. Normally, the library says they would allow people out of state to request a book, which they would then ship to them for free. But because this is a special book, one-of-a-kind piece, of course, they've changed the rules a bit, so only people in the Treasure Valley can actually check it out. And it's still 88 people long. And because each person can hold on to a book for a month, it could be about 7.5 years before, if you're at the end of that list, before you get your hands on it. The wait, yep, nearly as old as Dylan himself. All right, final moments of the show here. We're going to get to your comments. We're going to go hard copy today, having some technical difficulties. So I do have in my fingers some of your comments that you sent in, like this one. Canyon County looks like the good old boys club may be getting upset with someone that's just not willing to go along. I would like to know more about what she has called them out for and looking forward to hearing more about it, says Ray. We would too, and we are going to continue to look into that, see if we can get somebody to tell us a little bit more when it comes to the details. Has Representative Moon actually written down her definition of CRT so we know what she is talking about? That's a question we ask of a lot of people, of our legislators, if they can define it. Not many of them can. It's just kind of a vague reference to something they may not like or they think is indoctrination of ideology that they refer to as liberal or leftist. And this one comes in as well. Representative Moon, please don't let facts get in the way of your story. Us cohorts would appreciate it, says Jim in Boise. And since critical race theory is a law school course involving judicial treatment historically of different races, we must have very, very, very smart preschoolers, says Sue in Boise. That's a very good point. Why don't we invite parents, audit teams into the school libraries for simple examination of materials to end the squabbling for public proof, asked Mike. You can. All that is available at your school. Just got to ask for it. You can go check it out for yourself. We'll see you tomorrow.